In today's video, we have a big update for the potential tropical cyclone and overall tropical activity, because there is a couple of potential chances. But we have seen a major boost in really the probability from these models and what they're outputting for this storm potentially off the East Coast. So very bad news both on the European model, the European ensemble model. Really everything is looking more likely for tropical activity. On top of that, more storms in the east than originally depicted over the last few days. So we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in that as well. And overall across the nation, a lot of activity coming, including a pretty big cool down later on for the eastern half of the nation we'll need to look into. Let's just dive into things. I know that's a mouthful. And later on this afternoon is actually where we're going to start. And we actually have a little bit of a chance right here. There's just some storminess offshore of the East Coast, and I would say that that is a little bit of a disturbance. I don't think it's going to develop, though. Obviously, I think that it's just an area of interest, and definitely if the pattern was a little bit different, I think we'd have a much more favorable chance of this developing, especially if it was a little bit more slow moving. It races off the East Coast here, which is just not sufficient for tropical development. We do see that for a lot of your Rockies and plains, once again, we do have showers and thunderstorms ongoing once more. We do see that for areas across the southeast and deeper south, again, thunderstorms prevailing here. A little bit died down from what we saw last week. I've said that again and again. This is a little bit more typical for this time of year by Sunday. Or better yet, that was Saturday. Here's Sunday, and we do see that this low is trying to develop. It's just so far north now. A little bit more low pressure to the south as well, so there's just areas of interest off the East Coast for the late weekend. But again, we pretty much are leaning towards that being nothing at the end of the day. And even if it would develop, it would probably stay offshore. We do see for the northern Rockies, northern plains, and some of the upper Midwest, some thunderstorms and showers once again for tomorrow. We're also seeing some thunderstorm activity throughout a lot of your Midwest, southeast, and deeper south again. So these areas once more prevailing in the thunderstorm department. Monday, July 29th, we're seeing a lot of these thunderstorms throughout the Great Lakes and upper Midwest. A lot of your southeast coast once again. And then still the deeper south, seeing some there, a little bit more isolated this time around. We do see some showers and thunderstorms here for southeast Canada and southwest Canada, better yet, and northwest United States. For Monday, let's take a look at Tuesday the 30th, and we once again see the East Coast seeing these storms. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not going to be how it was the previous couple of weeks, where it was just repetitive storminess for some areas. However, I think that we will get a pretty decent 2 to 3 day window of some storms here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe at least. Here's Wednesday, day 3 of that, and we see it gets a little bit heavier for some of the Mid-Atlantic. So we are seeing once again the chances of thunderstorms out here. That's Wednesday, July 31st, final day of July, by the way. We do see more thunderstorms for kind of your Midwest areas again, and then some isolated chances throughout the plains and some of the Four Corner states are there. It is very, very isolated though. For Thursday on the 1st of August, we see that the East Coast has an isolated chance still, but much receded from what it was that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. But the elevated chance is going to be more for the Midwest once again, and some of the Ohio Valley there. As we keep going towards Friday, the 2nd of August, we see that the East Coast, there's still just a very slim isolated chance, but it has actually further receded. We do see that area across the Midwest and Ohio Valley doing better once again. Now, our tropical area of interest is now over the Bahamas by Friday, August 2nd. We've seen this model flip-flop on it, but it's really stayed consistent with where it's showing it and when it's showing it, which is interesting, and that's boding well for this model to end up being correct, unfortunately. So we're really going to want to watch this closely. We also have ensemble support for sure with this type of a track, which we're going to look into later on, which is hugely important when we're looking at something in the medium to long range. Is it just this deterministic model, this European model here? Because this is only one model, right? So it can show some pretty crazy stuff sometimes. However, the European ensemble model is like 20 to 30 models put into one, and it's taking the mean average of all of those, and they're all slightly different. So you're getting a group a group idea instead of an individual idea in that case. So oftentimes we look at the deterministic model for more realistic details, because with the 30 members all mixing together, we do see some wacky stuff in its own right. But when we see this individual model showing something and then the ensemble model is agreeing, so the majority of those 20 to 30 models are agreeing, that is going to bode well for confidence in this type of a system and really make this something that we have to watch very, very closely. We're going to see that this actual model run is going to be the worst one as far as how intense it gets that we've seen yet. I also want to mention that, the day before yesterday, we saw this model put out almost an identical but less intense outlook for the track. And yesterday, we didn't even have a tropical system on this model. So don't be surprised if we flip-flop a little bit. We're seeing it today, might not see it tomorrow, might see it the day after. We can expect some back and forth like that until we're within about 5 days, which will be hours 120, which I think we're about a day or two away from. So expect a little bit of some back and forth to be possible. We do see that sometimes, but the ensemble model should stay consistent. That's what we need to really watch for. If the ensemble model starts to back down to the majority of those 20 to 30 models, that's when confidence should lower that there's really going to be any sort of threat. So that is the main thing that we're watching at this point. Between Friday and Saturday, we see plenty of development with this system. Here's Saturday afternoon, 1002, right around Freeport, Bahamas there, offshore of the east coast of Florida, of course. We do see plenty of storms around, actually, for the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic simultaneously. Let's move this towards Sunday the 4th. And we see we drop all the way down to a 994 millibar low pressure center. If it was located right here, we would really need to watch the Carolina coast, of course, because this area, would be really, really right in the bullseye. We do have a stretching cold front as well, which usually bodes really bad because they like to ride along those frontal boundaries and kind of interact there. So that is just daily emojis there. We have, that's just not a good look. So a lot of storminess already around for the deeper south and east coast here as this tropical cyclone is trying to move in. So that's just, this is definitely the worst look I've seen so far as just impactfulness. The only good news here, and I can't even see what pressure we're at really. We're pretty low there, I think. I think we're in the 980s by this point. And this is dodging the East Coast as of now. So it is not directly impacting this area here, which, again, specifics are not too accurate at this point. So that's the unfortunate part. Intensity can lean towards, we can take away some of the intensity. This model's calling for a rapid intensification down into the 970s, which is very low, likely a hurricane or a pretty strong hurricane. And the takeaway here is that this model supports that, right? So this model is calling for enough of a window without dry air, without shear, for this storm to develop that much. So that is a long-range takeaway that we can really take home from this. However, the location, while there is slim amounts of information, it is important, it can vary a lot. And I would not be surprised to see a lot of fluctuation, although we've seen it stay pretty consistent over the past few days with the location, which is interesting, right off the East Coast, but not striking. And the ensemble model actually shows some agreement at times with that, or at least for the beginning half. I think we have more striking Florida on the ensemble, but we'll look at it later on. Let's continue though. And you see we're at a 977 here overnight Monday into Tuesday. And what really happened that caused this storm to be offshore is that cold front really moves offshore and it rides along it off the coast. If that cold front were to stall out, we would likely see it come well on shore and try to meet up with that cold front. So that is the big determining factor. And this is actually the last frame of the model run, 240. So this is as far as we get. It's offshore of the East Coast, which is good news at this point. Total precipitation, of course, we see a ton off the East Coast with this system. So a lot of rainfall could show you what kind of rainfall we would be looking at if it striked. As of now, 5 to 10 inches along that brown strip. We do see that a lot of the East is in the reds, which is going to be average to above average for many of these areas. The West, however, I think is mostly dry here. Let's see. Yeah. So pretty much exactly what I said. We're drier out here in the West compared to normal. The greens is going to be the above average areas. So maybe with the exception of areas surrounding the Great Lakes, we're seeing above average precipitation along all of your eastern areas. Now, as we take a look at the temperature pattern, we're colder right now. We're going to move into a warmer pattern here for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But look at this. We get another cold air mass for midweek next week. This is Wednesday the 7th, Thursday the 8th, Friday the 9th, and then Saturday the 10th. Even bigger cooldown on the way here. And then Sunday the 11th looks like it's going to be pretty cool, as this is obviously an Arctic air mass. It's come from the Arctic Circle at this point and brought far below normal temperatures. Blues being 1 to 10 degrees below normal, so pretty significant already. These greens, however, over the Midwest here are 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is certainly going to be a something you walk outside and feel. It's not going to be a secret that this is there. That's how I would describe that. Now, as we take a look at this European AI model, something that we've been looking at a lot, we see that even outside of our storm, we have multiple disturbances here coming from your MDR. I should have known that was going to take too long. That was pointless. But MDR, that's short for main development region, and we see most of our tropical invests throughout the season come from this area. And as they do, we usually see a lot of dry Saharan dust moving in for the early season, like June, July timeframe, which is what we've kind of struggled with. But we're actually seeing this die down over the next couple of days, and that is what is opening up a window for one of these to develop. As you may know, we have historic temperatures out there. We have a La Nina, so there's less shear because of that. So those are the main things that hold back storms: cold waters, shear, dry air. If we're getting rid of all of those things, it's open season for these storms, unfortunately. So let's keep going. And we do see that this system moves straight towards the Bahamas here on this model as well. So we're looking at the European model, AI model, and the ensemble model. And we get perfect agreement almost here on this European AI model, down into the 980s off the East Coast, maybe a little further off the East Coast here on this model than your typical European model, but it's by about 50 to 100 miles. So it's not too far off, especially when we're looking at, beyond 5 days out. I mean, that's pretty crazy actually to have that much agreement between these models. We actually, outside of this storm, we actually get a disturbance move into the southern Caribbean as well for early August, which we've kind of been eyeballing. And this one moves towards the Gulf towards the end of the model run, and that would be a big question mark. So more on the way as well, not just this system. As that dry air dies down, these are going to consistently put out some threats once again. So here is your European ensemble model probability of tropical depression. And once again, we've seen a big uptick. Yesterday, we saw an uptick from the day before. We're once again seeing that. The track is pretty consistent with the European model, except we look like we get half taking it like this, like the European model showed. And the other half splits and tries to take it through southern Florida, maybe into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That seems to be a big split there. But again, specific locations aren't too important, but with the ensemble model, we get a little bit more confidence. We had, I think, a maximum of 50 to 60, which is the yellow shade just above the green there. But now we have 2 shades above it. So now we have 60 to 70 showing up in that lighter orange, and 70 to 80% chance they're in those darker oranges to the north of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. So that is a pretty high chance of tropical depression, if you ask me. So this model, the vast majority, I'd say 70 to 80% of the models are showing a tropical depression at least developing in these areas, which is absolutely crazy. As we look at tropical depression, we only had the dark kind of purple, 10 to 20% chance there, showing up in a small area in the Bahamas, and now we have it in a very, very large area, and we even have a second blue shade, 20 to 30% chance showing up for the Bahamas, Florida, and even off the East Coast. So this is interesting. This is a big time development, and usually we see these numbers start out low. So, even if this could be a very strong storm, as we've seen from the European model, don't expect this model to show a 90 to 100% chance because these models are showing strong storms. They usually have to creep up. So we're going to see this every day. If this storm is going to develop, we're likely going to see these models continuously increase things by 10 to 20% a day until we're getting very, very close. As of now, no hurricane probabilities are popping up. But again, if there is a hurricane expected, this is something that we will start to see pop up over the coming days. So this is the time to be watching these things. We're really going to be paying attention very closely. And I am concerned, as I've alluded to. I think that this has been very consistently shown on the models. It has a lot of ensemble support and even AI support, which, we don't really know what that means yet, or how much that means yet, because this is our first hurricane season really having that at our disposal. So we're going to watch things very closely. You should too. So be sure to subscribe, as we do upload every single day. We'll be going through this storm daily until it is either a non-threat or it's occurring. Also, you can hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.